Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain is the way Metal Gear was always meant to be played. Moment-to-moment gameplay can be enthralling, allowing you to craft your own memorable experiences that you'll race to tell all your friends about. It feels like the way series creator Hideo Kojima always wanted the game to be played, and many have hailed The Phantom Pain as the fully realized vision Metal Gear was always meant to be. Unfortunately, that ultimate vision is cut short by a truncated story, poorly told plot, and bloated missions that bog down the experience almost unforgivably. Make no mistake, the gameplay in Metal Gear Solid 5 is the pinnacle of stealth mechanic refinement. Each mission and enemy base you come across is handled like a puzzle, one with almost infinite solutions. The game is smart in how it approves just about any strategy you can think of, and never punishes you for mowing down enemies instead of sneaking past them. Take, for example, the time I reenacted both the ending to Saving Private Ryan and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Tasked with destroying a convoy of tanks, I hid by the roadside and waited for them to pass by. Sticking C4 to their sides unnoticed, I successfully managed to destroy 2 of them. As the last began speeding away, I gave chase, whistling for my horse in the process. As D-Horse came alongside of me, I jumped onto his back without breaking stride and pursued the remaining enemy on horseback with my rocket launcher. Moments like these, of my own design, are extremely satisfying and comprise much of what makes The Phantom Pain so great. However you can think to complete an objective is most likely a viable option, and the game continues to give you fresh options as you progress. So much so that you'll never approach the same mission twice, no matter how many times you play it. As far as video games go, Metal Gear Solid 5 fully realizes its medium in terms of letting players craft their own cinematic experiences, while retaining all the quirkiness and little details that make playing games so fun. This is heightened by the Fulton Extraction tool, which allows you to whisk enemies, animals, vehicles, crates, and prisoners back to your mother base to build out your own army. The mother base aspects of the game were of least interest to me, but if you're into micromanaging and base building, this very large portion of the game is right up your alley. While you can automate your base to sort soldiers and start research development, you really have to keep an eye on the place to ensure you're upgrading the right way so you won't get stuck having to grind later. Collecting enemy soldiers and high-ranking officials is addicting, and scoping out an enemy with a high rating in any one of your research categories is enough to raise your pulse as you carefully seek to extract them. In sum, it's a bigger, more refined version of the concepts explored in Peace Walker.
I want to touch his pod pads.
Yeah, just... Wait, what?
You don't want to touch him too?
No, that, never really occurred to me.
You don't know the awesomeness of a puppy's paw pads?
The game continues to add elements to your mother base building well over 20 hours into the game. While the aforementioned base building lovers will no doubt enjoy having all these options, I found that they were ultimately a distraction from the core game, which was so satisfying to play in its own right. Eschewing hour-long cutscenes and codec conversations in favor of letting you craft your own memorable experiences is why Metal Gear Solid 5 has, hands down, the best gameplay in the series. Codec conversations are now replaced with cassette tapes, which you can listen to at your leisure as you sneak around the open world. And it's a good thing, too. While the open world allows for some truly unique options, the scenery between outposts is bland and dull. Having to wait for a helicopter to drop you off and pick you up after every mission is a nuisance as well. The cassettes help fill in the downtime, and it's entirely up to you if you want to catch up on world-expanding audio logs or chill out to the great licensed soundtrack that features some great mid-1980s new wave tunes. Combine the latter while sneaking around enemy bases and you're the star of your own 1980s action flick. Unfortunately, all of that great gameplay feels wasted in The Phantom Pain. There is undoubtedly diminishing returns as you progress farther into the game. Each mission, especially the side ops, begin to feel exactly the same. Main missions especially fail to heighten the tension or feel significant thanks to the hands-off storytelling. Unlike other entries in the series, the game ends basically the same way it began. Yeah, you have more abilities in which to complete your missions, but there's no story to back them up. There are a handful of missions that break the mold and offer something unique, but they're few and far between. The sum of Metal Gear Solid 5's parts amount to very little, and it's indisputable that the game feels very bloated as a result. Missions, both main and side ops, center around 3 or 4 main types, such as target extraction, demolition, intel gathering, and more target extraction. Had more of the side ops been condensed, given a proper narrative arc and framed within the larger story, it would have made for a more engaging experience. Chapter 2 especially suffers from this problem. After an exciting finale to the first chapter, it becomes apparent very quickly how much of the game was rushed. Missions in the latter half of the game mostly comprise of literally the same missions as the first, but with difficulty modifiers. Occasionally you'll be given a task that has a unique objective, but takes place in the same areas you've already been to. Between these disjointed and repetitive missions, you're drip-fed the occasional cutscene that advances the larger plot. Exacerbating the problem is the occasional barrier of having to develop a particular item to complete an objective. Depending on how much you've been micromanaging the entire game, it's easy to find yourself in a situation where you then have to waste hours of time grinding side ops in order to collect more soldiers and upgrade your base. The story missions at the very tail end of Chapter 2 are where things get interesting, but the disjointed way in which the story is told completely ruins the delivery. Some of the most important material is even relegated to post-credit cassette tapes. It makes the last 40 hours you spent getting to that point feel like busy work. It's fun and entertaining busy work, but busy work all the same. This points to the larger problem with Metal Gear Solid 5. The months leading up to the game's release were plagued with rumors and controversies about Kojima's departure from Konami on not-so-friendly terms. Whether or not those were the exact reasons for the game's truncated finale is up for debate, but the reality is the game is clearly unfinished. The lazy repeating of missions in the latter half of the game, coupled with pushing some of the most important story information to audio logs, including one that actually establishes Skullface as a villain, makes it clear we either didn't experience the plot the way it was supposed to be envisioned, or nobody at Konami, even Kojima, knew how to deliver a story inside an open world. Still, plot delivery aside, the Phantom Pain missteps when it comes to characterizations too. Where previous entries were filled with interesting and eclectic characters, Kiefer Sutherland Snake is a passive, soft-spoken man with no interesting entities to bounce off of. Ocelot in particular is a curious example. In Metal Gear Solid 3 and Metal Gear Solid 1, the two games that surround Metal Gear Solid 5 before and after respectively, he's a young and then old, eccentric, sadistic soldier who breathes life into the world and offers a complex layer to both plots. In Metal Gear Solid 5, Troy Baker plays him as a bland, soft-spoken cowboy whose only role is to argue with Kaz Miller every other cutscene.
That was some fancy shooting. Pretty good.
This problem extends to the villains as well. Skullface in particular is a weak adversary who is hardly given any screen time, nor does he do anything that establishes him as an interesting villain worthy of our efforts. Gone too are the memorable boss fights the series is known for, and their absence is felt. There is no supporting cast of villains whose characterizations crescendo into interesting encounters. Instead, we fight the same squad of enemies every few missions, which almost always plays out the same exact way. The character Quiet is the exception to this rule, which is quite an accomplishment considering she's mute. She's intriguing, emotional, and has a vested interest in our protagonist, which makes her the most compelling character in the game. Ultimately, the Phantom Pain is a paradox. It's incredibly deep when it comes to gameplay mechanics, but very shallow when it comes to quest variety. Its open-world structure allows for creative ways to complete objectives, but feels bland and devoid of interesting content outside of a few specific areas. Great detail is given to the little things, like making D-Horse poop on command, but almost no attention was given to making sure each mission feels like it means something that serves a greater whole. Metal Gear Solid 5 brings a great discussion to the table. As technology marches on, we're going to see larger games with sprawling worlds and deep mechanics. In 2015 alone, we've already seen The Witcher 3, The Phantom Pain, Arkham Knight, with Fallout 4 on the horizon. The problem that developers are going to have to face is making all of that content worth your time. For the Phantom Pain, that content is a mixed bag. It's the equivalent of a really addicting multiplayer game. It's fun, exciting, and you'll glibly spew how you handle the latest adventure to anyone in the room. However, after around 30 hours, that excitement fades and is replaced with disappointment once you realize how the rest of the game is going to play out. Whether or not you want to pick up the Phantom Pain is, as always, up to you. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain is the best Metal Gear game I've ever played, but it's also the most disappointing. Those hoping for a grand send-off to Big Boss will find the way the narrative unfolds lacking and immensely unsatisfying. It's hard not to feel sad upon completing the final story mission, knowing full well this is likely the last we'll see in the way of a true Metal Gear game, and knowing how much better it could have been handled. If you're a fan of the series, prepare to be disappointed, but if the gameplay alone is enough to intrigue, then by all means check it out. The Phantom Pain is a severely flawed gem on the crown of an excellent series, and there's no denying that Konami and Kojima's falling out will forever haunt its final installment. It's been a great ride, and even though I wish Big Boss went out on a higher note, it's better not to dwell on speculation. Enjoy it for what it is, play the game how you'd like, and Fulton the Afghanistan countryside clean of all its farm animals. For all things video games and Metal Gear related, keep it right here at Nerdy Inc.
The body I've lost. The comrades I've lost. Won't stop hurting. It's like they're all still there.